Ben Harris-Quinney is a political commentator. He's got plenty to say about the BBC, the British bloated corporation. Benjamin, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. Not too bad.
I was sitting here thinking, Jesus, Gregg Wallace has joined me. You look rather like him, sir. I'm jesting just a little bit. I want to.
Yeah, I can assure you, I'm not an official spokesman for Gregg Wallace.
Yeah, I don't want to talk. I'll tell you exactly why I don't want to talk about Gregg Wallace, and I'm being completely honest. He has denied what's been said. That's an ongoing situation, and this to me is a bigger issue, Ben. Right? The issue here is. They want to increase the licence fee next year by a fiver to $174.50. When you look back at them, and I said it at the beginning of the show, the Savile thing they were aware of. They carried on showing his Christmas special. He turned out to be one of the worst paedophiles ever. The Martin Bashir...
Decades. For decades, yeah, it went on.
Bashir fell short of, I mean, by anybody's standards, the standards of integrity and transparency, and what he did to Princess Diana. Hugh Edwards is paid £200,000 whilst the BBC management knew that he'd been viewing pictures of 6- and 7-year-old kids being... I don't even want to talk about it. He should be in bleeding prison. They've got form, haven't they?
They have, and I think the fundamental problem with the BBC is that they put out this holier-than-thou image, and that they are entitled to special treatment, as you say, in the media market. That's what it is. It's a market of content that is now very crowded and competitive. And they put out this idea that we're above all that. You know, we're the BBC. They've just put out a ridiculous advert that is extremely biased against Trump and other political figures, saying you can only trust the BBC to give you the true version of events. And yet the person until very recently who was, you know, their news anchor is, as you say, now a convicted sex offender. So even if you take the view that, yeah, there are other media organisations that have got bad actors in them, that just means that, OK, sure, there are, but then the BBC don't deserve special treatment. They've done nothing to deserve special treatment, I think, for decades, and much to deserve condemnation. So when it comes to the licence fee, and it comes to this idea that the BBC are somehow more trustworthy than any other media organisation, that has been swept away by their own actions. And I think it's about time that we have a full review of what the position of the BBC is in British society and you know, in the media generally. They simply don't deserve the licence fee.
I agree, and I think your word trustworthy, I think it's really important, because I think whatever your choice of media, I suppose if you're my age and maybe even younger, if there are, you know, it was the go-to thing. Certainly the landscape changed, but the fact that every single other organisation in the media world, on whatever front, has to prove via its content whether it's of interest to people or not, it strikes me as particularly wrong today. Firstly, that this is just expected, that it doesn't matter, but let's look at what they do. I'll say to you what I've said all for the last 45 minutes. They refuse to call Hamas a terrorist organisation, and yet they'll whine and bitch about Donald Trump, who won the popular vote in America. So here you are, there's a democracy, BBC. 85 million people, whether you like it or not, you left-wing bedwetters, voted for Donald Trump. Deal with it and report it straight down the line. I watched Clarkson at that farmers' march the other day against Victoria Derbyshire. It's just, I'll tell you what I always feel, Ben, I don't know what you think. They always strike me as so bleeding worthy.
Well, exactly. It is this pious, we're better than everyone else. We have the real view. We have ownership of the truth. And they clearly don't. And not only do they get a lot of their reporting wrong. I mean, I've worked with every media organisation out there, every major media organisation. The worst in terms of being dishonest about what I've said and twisting my words have been the BBC, without question. You might say, well, that's the media, that's what it's like. But they absolutely do not deserve this reputation as being above everyone else.
I think that's the point. They've always assumed that, in fact, when we were growing up, they were on a pedestal. They were unbiased. They didn't... You know, you'd go to America and Fox News was blatantly on the right. You'd tune... But no, it's almost as if... I mean, it all started with that ridiculous comedy that I always thought was brilliant, and you're going to say... Ryan's going to get the name with... That had Hugh Bonneville in it, WA or something, or whatever it was called.
W1A, yeah.
Yeah, and they'd go and have a meeting in, you know, the room called Hamas, or they'd go... And I remember thinking, God... And in fact, the more you hear... And the more you see their positions, and as you said, this sort of pious, we are the best, we know best, you must listen to us. Some of their reporters, no, you don't. I don't think you get the pulse of British people right now at all, the BBC. I really don't. I think there's real anger and frustration. And it's not for me to sit on a show and say that people won't pay their licence fee. But I think the BBC are going to find it very difficult to justify themselves the longer this goes on. I really do.
Well, it's a broken model anyway. Yeah. And so what they need to do is they need to produce content that is in touch with what the public want.
Reality.
They need to look at why their viewing figures are plummeting in areas like news, and actually think, rather than saying we've got the truth and you need to listen to it and we are the antidote to misinformation, actually look at themselves and think, well, hold on, have we been completely accurate? Have we ever been biased? And the reality is, we can look at it, we can watch the BBC and tell them, yeah, this comes across as very anti-Trump, for example. It's not their role to be pro-Trump, but it's certainly not their role to be anti-Trump. The
thing is, you have to sit on the fence if you're broadcasting. I remember during the election, Purda tells us how we have to do it. The American press was so pro Kamala Harris. Fine, that's what but that's what we're talking about. Can I take a call and include you in it? I want to go to Burnley very quickly. Warren, you're on Talk Drive. Ben is with me as well. What do you want to say about the BBC quickly, pal?
Yeah, it was just my point that yourself, Jeremy, and every other person you get on board talking about the BBC, use the term BBC. This is not the BBC problem. This is the people, the executives who run this organisation or corporation. They're the problem. In the same way, I used an analogy with a girl when I rang in and said, look, we call areas. We all live in towns and cities up and down the country, and we all know of what we deem to be bad areas in those cities and areas where you wouldn't want to live. You don't want to walk at night. It's dangerous, whatever it is. It's not the area's problem. It's the people that live in there. You understand where I'm coming from?
Listen, I do, but the top of the BBC, whether decided by the government or the corporation's executives, a bit like the police, thank you very much for your call, Warren, somebody's got to change something for me, Ben, because quite simply, I think, very much as I believe that this country politically is getting to a point where it's fed up being taken for granted and sick and tired of politicians lying and they want honesty and whatever, and I think the American model, the way people looked and went, my God, look at him and some of the things he says, but you'd sort of want him in your corner. And I feel like there's a lot of people in this country that are fed up with our governments, I think politicians, and I think they're fed up with the BBC. I think they find it, I think they're done with it. I think they're past it. I think the world has changed and the BBC ain't caught up.
Yeah, because they've abused that trust, certainly over a few decades. And alongside that, they've stopped producing quality programming. We all remember shows like The Office, shows.
You couldn't put that on now. They wouldn't put that on now. That would be politically incorrect, wouldn't it?
No, well, indeed. I mean, I think a lot of the jokes that Gregg Wallace is under fire for featured on their programming a few decades ago. But it was unquestionably brilliant work, great comedy. The stuff they did with Attenborough going back a few decades, there's no question that is good stuff. It's high quality stuff. But the percentage of that has decreased, and the percentage of them putting out very biased, essentially opinion instead of fact has significantly increased. And as you say, the fairest way to judge it is let people subscribe to the BBC if they want to. And if the BBC are producing good content, they won't have any problem. They'll probably make more money. And if they're not, they'll go downhill, just like everyone else.
Ben, I've got to move on. You're a top man. Ben Harris-Quinney, political commentator. Thank you very much indeed on the BBC. This is Talk Drive.